This chicken salad with ramen noodles, you get the flavoring packet from that seasoning that goes into the vinaigrette. You get the wonderful crunch of cabbage, delicious chicken. This is a hearty meal, really, that eats like a salad, but is so much more. And you're gonna see how I make a slight false spin so you can enjoy it too, but it's good year round. Let's make it. It's a ramen chicken salad. I'm sure you've had many versions of this growing up. I know we did. Traditionally, it's made with a Chinese cabbage that usually I have from the garden, but I've used all mine up this year, and I still had red cabbage that was now just ready in the garden. So I'm doing it with red cabbage, and we're gonna do just a slight, very subtle false spin on it because it's one of my favorite salads, and we're doing it with chicken so it can be protein, healthy, hearty, but also be a whole lunch or meal if you want it. So what we're starting with is the chicken. It's chicken breast, boneless, skinless, super easy, usually a crowd pleaser too. I'm gonna start by making sure we put oil on them. They don't have a lot of fat, but I wanna roast them. And so I want to make sure we add some flavor, and just during roasting, the oil really helps. And then what we wanna make sure we do is salt and pepper them. A little bit of seasoning goes a long way. So we're gonna salt them. I always use kosher salt, as you know, and I just make sure I sprinkle it all over, and then we're gonna do some pepper, just ground black pepper. But the thing here is, the black pepper, we sometimes overuse it, but it does just add that nice seasoning, and that's really nice. So we're gonna put it on, and I'm gonna put these right into the oven to roast. That will add flavor too, get some little caramelization bits, and we'll just keep going. While the chicken's roasting, I always think a salad needs different components. You need texture, you need crunch, and that's what we're gonna work on right now is some great sweet crunch. And it's gonna start with pumpkin seeds. Now, so pumpkin seeds, pepitas they're also called, are these little green seeds, and they're so delicious when they're toasted. Raw, they don't have a lot of flavor, but toasted they do. And to do that, we're gonna actually slightly add a little bit of toasty sweetness. So I'm going to add some toasted sesame seed oil, which if you've ever had the toasted, has a beautiful nutty aroma, and I really like it. You don't usually want to use it on high heat, but we're not going to use it on high heat, but we are going to cut it with a little bit of, it sounds odd, but some maple syrup. Yeah, it's not traditionally used with toasted sesame seed oil, but these two things together are really going to enhance and create a great crunchy addition to the salad. We're going to do a little bit of salt, balance that sweetness, and some black pepper, again, just for seasoning, and we're going to put this right on the stove over medium-low heat, and what we're gonna really do is just make sure that we're starting to toast the seeds, but also slightly glaze them, which takes a few minutes, and then we're ready to go. I've been watching these closely, stirring them every so often just to make sure, because you can see all of that maple and the oil just gets eaten up, and it becomes in this nice toasted color, and it really just glazes them. So now what I wanna do when they're done, when they're that nice, kind of getting brown and starting to pop a little bit, I just wanna put them on some parchment, because what's gonna happen is, we glazed them. So pretty much we candied them. So if you spread them out just slightly, when they cool, they'll really stick together, which is fine. It's easier if you can kind of separate them a little bit. You'll have some clumps, have some individual, and then they can cool completely. And while they're cooling, we're gonna make the dressing, which is super simple. So right here I have a bowl, and this is really pretty much just like that classic dressing when you do make it, except it has a few extra components. So I am gonna start with a clove of garlic, because that's gonna make sure it has just a nice flavor to it. Just that undertone of garlic is gonna be really good. And really when I make any classic dressing, I would usually always add garlic. Now I'm gonna mince this up really fine, or as fine as I can, but you know the thing is, when you're at home, if you don't feel like you can mince it perfectly, that's fine. You could also put it through a garlic press if you want to, just to get it nice and smashed, whatever works for you. But then once we get this garlic nice and finely chopped, minced, if you will, we're gonna add it right to the bowl and put everything right on top. With the garlic in there, we can start then building the rest of it. So what we want here is some oil. Now, traditionally you'd use maybe a peanut oil. I'm gonna use a neutral flavored oil, and that means one that just doesn't have a lot of flavor. So it can be a salad oil, a vegetable oil. I often will gravitate towards an avocado oil. You wanna make sure it's a good avocado oil so it doesn't have any acrid flavor, but I like it and it's what I have on hand. You know, with anything I'm ever making, what you have on hand will dictate often what you're using, and that's okay. That's to me how it should be. So then we're gonna do some rice wine vinegar. That's gonna have that iconic taste it needs, and it to me is perfect with this. It's light. I like to think of it as a white wine vinegar too. It has just that perfect flavor. Now, this is the classic salad that has ramen in it. Those wonderful crunchy noodles, and you use them just like this, so they have that great texture. But it always comes with a flavoring packet. And yeah, you want to use it. That's what you need to do. Now, I often will just use like the vegetable or the chicken flavor ones. I think that's what works best with this, but you can use whatever you want. We're gonna add a small amount of sugar. Sugar balances things. And let's remember, when we cook at home, cook in our home, homemade food, make the dressings, everything, you're gonna have far less sugar, far less salt, far less preservatives than you would if you're buying purchased, bottled things. We're gonna do a little bit of salt for seasoning, a little bit of black pepper right in there. And then we are just going to whisk this together. And you just want to whisk it to make sure that flavoring packet gets dissolved. Sometimes they get a little clumpy, which sitting in the vinegar in that oil, it should dissolve easier anyway. And you can see how beautiful. So some of those pieces you're seeing are what are in that flavoring packet. It has little pieces of sometimes pepper, of different things that are dried. But instantly what I'm hit with, it smells so good. So now the dressing is ready to go. You can see everything now is ready to go, and we're just going to assemble. I pulled the chicken breast out when it was 160 degrees Fahrenheit. I let it sit for 10 minutes. That residual heat brought it up to the correct 165. I always like to pull meat out slightly before because there's a lot of heat in it, and that means that it's just going to get overcooked if you keep it in. So let's finish cooking outside of it. It's sometimes called carryover cooking. So you can just shred it then into pieces. Now, bite-sized pieces, whatever you want really, and honestly, I'm trying to be nice to do this for you, but I like to do it with my hands when it gets cool enough because you can get more of those perfect pieces, and our hands are the best tools in the kitchen. So we just shred it up, and then what we're gonna do is put everything together. So I have my dressing, give it a final whisk, and then I'm gonna start with the cabbage. And like I said, I'm using purple cabbage, which different color vegetables like cabbage, whatever they are, do have different properties, minerals, nutrients, so it is nice to switch it up. So, and I actually just like the color too. We're gonna put the cabbage in here. Now what I like to do, cabbage as you know, is a very fibrous, very kind of nice, rich, thick vegetable. I like to toss it with that dressing first to get it well coated, because what that does is it just slightly softens it, but it also makes sure the cabbage gets kind of evenly coated in it. And also, cabbage can withstand sitting in the dressing. Unlike, a really soft lettuce that will wilt, get soft in dressing, cabbage just kind of more marinates and to me becomes even better as it sits, and that's what I really like. So once you have all that cabbage tossed, we can start just putting in our other components. That's kind of everything around me. So we have chicken, and again, the chicken is what makes it hearty, delicious, kind of perfect addition. Then we're gonna add green onion, which you can see I have mostly chopped here. Now the green onion, what I like, they have that nice bright onion flavor, but more of a freshness than just kind of a yellow onion or a white onion would have. You could use red onion too, but I just like this. Now what I've been doing is matchsticking kind of one apple. I cut it into quarters, I took out the center core, and it's not a perfect matchstick, but what I'm doing then is just slicing it in kind of a matchstick because it matches a little bit more that cabbage size of the shreds, and that's what I like. And then once you get it to hit that dressing, it will then really start to have that acidity on it, which will keep it from turning too brown. So we're gonna put that right on top. Now the ramen, we use it like this. We just break it into pieces, crunch it up. That's what you want. See how perfect that is? You get some bigger ones, some smaller ones, some craggy ones. But this is what you want. You want it raw because you're gonna get that wonderful texture from it, and it softens with the dressing. So obviously do this soon before you're actually gonna serve it. And then last we go over to these candied, look at these, candied pumpkin seeds. See how they stay in clumps because they have a glaze on them? So we're just gonna kind of put them, and I like them to be kind of cloddy and clumpy. We'll break up some of the bigger ones, but just look how this, and I'll save a few that I can just put right on top too, but we'll have some of these mixed right in. Now we're just gonna toss all this together. And yeah, you know what? I broke my bigger bowl. You know what we're doing? We're doing it in the slightly smaller bowl, but that's okay. But look, I personally love the red cabbage. And you see how the cabbage is already dressed? That's because we first tossed it. I think especially with cabbage, pre-tossing it is super important. And now that the apple is getting into the vinaigrette, that's gonna keep it from turning brown because the vinaigrette has vinegar in it, which helps acidulate that apple. Otherwise it can, with oxygen, oxidize a little bit and it will get a little bit brown, which you don't want. But look how beautiful, fresh, hearty, delicious this salad really is. See how perfect it is? I love this. It looks so good. You get all those different textures, flavors. It's just a fresh salad. And what I love is in the seasons, sometimes it stays hot into the fall. Sometimes as we're getting into cooler months, or what we want to be cooler months, they lie to us and they become summer again. Well, this is something where you can add a few elements that make you maybe feel the season, but instead also work really well with that fresh flavor when it's hot outside. So this is how you just serve it up. Now again, maybe the ramen, if you want to hold this on a little bit longer, like hours before, I would hold off and not maybe add the ramen if you don't want it to get too soft, if you still want the real crunch to it, until later. You know, and some of these nuts, if you want, I save them because I like to put some of those fresh right on top, just so you get that nice kind of look and hit of them. But then it's ready to eat. And honestly, I will make a batch of this and eat on it for a few days because it stores in the fridge really well. You get the beautiful chicken, so you get that nice like heartiness with it. It just works well. I took a big bite, but it was worth it. This is one of those things where you get like that sweet tartness from the apple, you get the wonderful crunch of the cabbage that has that perfect balance of a little bit sweet but a lot of flavor in that dressing, especially from that packet. Now every packet of ramen is gonna have a different amount of sodium. Mine says low sodium. I definitely adjusted it with some salt because it needed a little bit, but you can do whatever you're using and make it work for that. But then the hit of those pumpkin seeds that are glazed, it's a really good mixture. And one of my favorite components is the thing that you had to do nothing to, and it's those ramen pieces. When I was little and we'd have this at home and mom would make it, I would pick those out and put more in mine because that's what I loved. So what do I hope you do with this? As with all my videos, I hope you're inspired, excited, and now know how to make something delicious, nourishing, healthy, but also just good for home. Whether it's bringing friends over, your family, your kids, your parents, whoever it is, just for yourself. You're worth it. You need to enjoy it. So share the video around so other people can see that too. Check my website, wiseguide.com, for this recipe and so many more. Until next time, make something delicious and enjoy it.